started right here, if that's okay. And again, one last time, I'm going to encourage people, if they want, to come closer, even if you have to leave in the middle, if you want to come down a little further towards the front. This lecture will be How to Teach Art for Social Justice, so hopefully you're in the right place. Before I do the introductions and we get going with this lecture, my name is Jill Oberman. I'm on the NCECA board. One of our sincere honors is to introduce some lectures, so here I am. Business, if you have your cell phone, please be sure it's on silent or vibrate or your preference there. And also we encourage you to take time after this lecture and all the lectures for the next few days to use the app and give us feedback. Both feedback on RJ helps a lot, but also for programming in the future. We would love to have your input on what the conference looks like in the future. So let me just open. I'm going to read my intro, RJ's intro from my telephone, so please forgive me for that. How to teach art for social justice. I'm so glad to see a crowd in here because it's such a timely question and such a sensitive issue. It's a little bit of a difficult conversation. So I'm super glad that you all are here, and I can't wait to hear what RJ is going to tell us. So RJ Christensen is a practicing sculptor and ceramics teacher at a diverse and low socioeconomic public high school in Houston, Texas. Having earned a master's from the Museum School in Boston with an emphasis in multicultural education, RJ has spent the last 9 years focused on developing skills and techniques in teaching students to make meaningful work. Although his students were making beautiful work and receiving accolades and awards, RJ wasn't satisfied with the overall takeaway from his class for every student. What were they learning about the real world? He often asked himself, what knowledge should he be giving to students about the world and the societies that they live in? Great questions. Things changed for him in 2013 when he received a fellowship from Fund for Teachers. With the grant, he studied indigenous Maori woodcarving in New Zealand with a master woodcarver, an elder, and he learned the value and methods for preserving culture through art. Taking his knowledge of cultural preservation back to the classroom revolutionized and reinvigorated his approach to education. Students were actually grateful for the relevant knowledge he was sharing, along with the techniques he was teaching. They felt empowered by the new methods for communicating their feelings about culture and life. Since then, RJ has been relentlessly introducing and fine-tuning projects that deal with culture and social justice. Given the turbulent changes in our societies and nation right now, RJ felt impressed to share his studies with and development at NCECA this year. His presentation is not just an informative lecture, but he expects this to be a platform for discussion. Where do we go now for art, in art for social justice? So please help me welcome RJ. Thanks so much, guys.
Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody can hear me okay? This is a topic I've really felt inspired to be here for. I missed the deadline for the NCECA proposals, and last summer, I heard about the shooting at the Orlando nightclub. And all of a sudden, something in me was like, you need to speak at NCECA. We need to start talking more about art for social justice, and you need to start doing more in your classroom. That's how I felt inside. And so I quickly emailed some people I knew at NCECA, and they said, yeah, let's have you present this coming conference. So that's why I'm here. I'm glad you're all here to talk with me about it. Why social justice art projects? Because these can help build hope over fear and despair, which a lot of people feel right now. And it's real. I have students that come into my class. I had one girl even crying about what's going on in America today and how she feels about her place in it. We can also create awareness of what's going on, encourage dialogue, utilize project-based learning, and spur social change. Some of the possibilities are community involvement, student-directed projects, equal empowerment. If the students are able to direct their own projects, they're empowered by that, and that's a big topic in education right now, student project-based learning, things like that. So if you're writing proposals, trying to get grant money, use that term, student-directed or project-based learning. And multiple media You don't have to stick with just clay. Like Jerry Saltz has been yelling at us. We need to branch out and use other materials, not just clay. And I agree with that. So discussion. I really do want you all to discuss with each other, how do you envision social justice playing a role in education? You have 2 minutes. Go. Turn to somebody and talk. You're not with anybody.
We're together, so
Okay.
I'm on the same page with this. But I teach a lot of the I'm an ELD teacher. I teach ethnic minorities high school age, but I've also taught play to ethnic minorities third and fourth grade. So I'm right in there with that.
Where do you see it going?
I just want to keep going with it. Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking to see what kind of ideas you have to share.
Okay. What roles do you see?
I was a social scientist for a lot of years, and recently have seen a collapse in a lot of things. Mick teaches, he also teaches night, he would play this a little bit, with adults. He's an ESL instructor. And we see a lot of people in our lives that are transgendered. A lot of our friends, we put it together, about 85% of our friends are either an ethnic minority or they're gay and lesbian.
Wow.
And so the people that we hang out with are people that are directly involved. They're people that we want to put something out there for.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm new to pottery. I've only been doing it about a year, and I'm really trying to make people more aware of what's going on. So even though I'm not directly teaching students, I want to be able to raise the awareness of it because I see the injustice that's going on all around. And to be honest, I'm really pissed off. So.
Thanks, Mr. Turner. Thank you, everybody. Wow. Listen to this discussion going. It's obviously something we all care about. What do we need to do to influence social justice? Well, that's probably something you have personal feelings about. What is your responsibility? Hopefully a lot of you in here are educators. Who in here are that's their job is educators? Yeah, and who are not educators, but they make a lot of art? Yeah. So we both groups, we have a lot of responsibility to talk about social justice. Like Sam Turner up here said, 85% of the people he hangs out with or deals with every day are minorities in some aspect, whether race or societal minorities. And it's something we need to deal with more in our art. So 3 approaches for art for social justice. The first is deconstruct and challenge social norms. If you're taking notes, put number 1 and leave a big space. Put number 2 and leave a big space. Put number 3 and leave a big space, because I'm going to have lots of information to go in between those. And if you write it with no space, you won't have anything to write. You won't have any area to write it in. So the first big one I'm going to start with is going to be the biggest section of this lecture. Deconstruct and challenge social norms. Anybody know this artist? Who? Shepard Fairey or? Obey. He's really good about doing art for social justice and challenging social norms. My students really connect with this because this is a student that's probably their age, a kid that's probably their age, and he has a flower in his hair, which is a symbol of peace or spring or love or lots of those things, like nice things, right? And then he's carrying a
M16A1.
okay, an M16A1. I didn't know it was that, but it's a rifle, which is used to kill or defend. So we have violence versus peace. We have all this duality going on, not only in this picture, but in our society. And who's holding it? A child. He's emphasizing what's going on. He's addressing the issues of warfare and child warfare. Norman Rockwell, anybody think I was going to show him today? Nah, but wait till you see these. These are the stereotypical American dream pictures. What about this one? Have you guys seen this by Norman Rockwell? This is about a woman who goes to church. She's from a different part of town, but she's black. But the other people don't see her the same way they see themselves. And she feels kind of outcast. Have you guys ever, or is that going on right now, today? Yeah, not just among blacks, but among all races. We see that. I'm married to a Guatemalan woman, and I know that people perceive me in different ways just because of that. The problem we all live with, you've probably seen this one. That happened during his lifetime. He painted this soon after that happened. He's addressing social issues, even though most of his stuff is candy. Okay? Richard Notkin. Sorry, Richard, I didn't get your permission to use your images. I hope you don't mind. But he's exploring the origins of conflict in human nature. And Pablo Picasso, a great artist who his whole life didn't really address politics, didn't really address social issues until Guernica. And Guernica is one of the landmark pieces of war and social justice in art. When we feel that special calling in our hearts to do something different, it's time to take a risk. It's time to talk about what's going on in our art or in our education, in our projects we're doing with our students. Roberto Lugo changed everything for me a couple years ago when I was in Providence. I saw his speech, and probably most of you have seen it. Who has seen this? Seen Roberto Lugo speaking? Wow, if you haven't, you need to look that up. Check out Roberto Lugo, NCECA 2015. And you'll be blown away by his speech. Anyway, he did a series called The Century Vase. And this really clicked for me. I'm like, my students need to do something like this. He's addressing slavery and colonialism and white supremacy and heroes. Who are the heroes of our society? He's using images and symbols that are part of contemporary society, bandanas, gold, patterns, and mixing it up with traditional images. George Washington and the caution sign to watch out for fleeing immigrants. So, the project I came up with for my students is American Dream Vase. Is the American dream a reality or an illusion? And students got to decide. I'm going to depict how the American dream is a reality, or I'm going to depict how it is an illusion. The student on the left, who made this vase on the left, he talked about religious freedom and how he's supported in whatever religion he wants to choose. He picked the Mormon temple angel Moroni on the left, and a takarangi from Maori culture that represents spiritual enlightenment from heaven, angel wings, which we see in a lot of Catholic symbolism in their art. So he's mixing all these religious backgrounds to show that he has the right in this country to practice what he believes. On the right, we see a piece by Victor who noticed, one of my students noticed how the rich people are paying the poor people to build their mansions and their skyscrapers. These great castles are being built on the backs of the lowest of society. And that's who is lifting America to be great, but they're in the shadows. This was created right after Sandy Hook a few years ago when an intruder came into an elementary school and shot a lot of children and teachers. And depicted on here at the top level are the people that are hiding from the shooter. You see the shooter on that handle with the gun. And in the middle section, you see a pattern of candles for the memorial they had, and the crowds of people that were on the outside of the school days after, mourning the loss of their friends and family. Is that part of the American dream? And then Jonathan, he had a piece in the K-12 exhibition here. You might have seen it. It has a lot of flowing handles on it, 3 flowing handles. He made this piece about how the American dream is real for him, a homosexual, and how there are more and more rights for him as time goes on. This issue is becoming easier and easier for him to deal with in his family and society. Oh, not just homosexuals, but transgender and bi. He wanted me to say that. So that's one project I did to deconstruct and challenge social norms. That's one project we did as the American Dream Base. Another project is structures of society. How do societal structures affect the way we live? And self-portraits. How does society affect the way I feel about myself? And then I would like to know, you guys can email me. Oh, that reminds me. Here's my sketchbook. Don't anybody steal my ideas because they're really special. In my sketchbook, please write your email if you'd like me to email you or sign you up to get the slideshow. Or just and my email's on there, so if you'd like to email me with any questions or input, you can. Either way, you can write your email there, or you can write my email down and email me back. Any other ideas for deconstructing and challenging social norms? Any art project ideas I would love to have and try to use them in my classroom. So structures of society, I'll show you a few examples of that. Right here on the left, we have a piece that's about capitalism is overturning religion. And on the right, this is Kelby's piece. He said that the black represents peer pressure. But as you give into peer pressure, you get praised for it. And that's the shiny metallic part in the middle. But when you get so involved in pleasing people because of peer pressure, pretty soon it wreaks havoc on your life and you're chained down to things you didn't want. So peer pressure is a structure. This is cool because they didn't understand what a social structure was. And we got to talk about how there are structures that you can see, but there are structures you can't see. So that really opened up their mind to an abstract idea and concept. The one on the left is about, do we have enough time for our family? The chair, the red chair and the red table represent the family around the dinner table, but does time outweigh that? Do we say, oh, we don't have enough time for that? Or we're not going to make time for that? And then the one on the right is about government, the executive, legislative, and judicial branches working together to create a unified, happy government. That's what my student perceives in America, why the American dream is real. A happy relationship depends on balance. And on the right, this represents a mother. It's called Spread Thin, and how this mother has 7 children represented by the pots, and she supports them and protects them with everything she has, with all of her strength, but it spreads her thin and she's weak. She cried. The mother cried when she saw that piece. It was really cool. All right. This is about families. Liz Beth said, in the teenage brain, that's why she has a brain, she said, in the teenage brain, we perceive our families as enclosing us in these prisons. But really, they're just trying to protect us, and that's why she has this shield symbol, which shields us from heartache, from trouble, from pain. And again, this is combining wood and ceramic. How long can we hold on is the title of this piece. The pot in the middle represents government, and the handles or arms represent the arms of the people, of society. How long can we hold on to this thing called government? By the way, these are all coming out all these students are making these at the same time. Does that look like the same art project? It is. This is about public education. When are we going to start teaching kids about safe sex? When pigs fly. It's a piñata. And when you break the piñata open, condoms come out. He thought it would be a good way to teach kids. Oh, by the way, we took that to the state art competition for high school, and they kicked it out. They disqualified it. No, you can't have that. It has condoms. It doesn't have a penis. No, you can't have condoms. Don't say that word. Huh? Texas. Very conservative. Don't want to offend anybody. The one on the left also got disqualified until we put caution tape over it. We covered up the boobs. But self-portraits. How does society affect the way I feel about myself? And, you know, if you look at media, there's a lot of media that says, show your body off, you'll get lots of attention and praise for it. But then you go to school, and if you show any cleavage, they send you to the principal's office, and you have to go home in an oversized sweatshirt from gym. So, how do I feel about myself? Is this something I can show, or is this something I have to hide? The one on the right is about the empowerment of women. It was made by a girl who wanted to show how women can be strong. And then this is another one. I think you guys can tell with how this person feels about herself. Nathan Murray was just featured in Ceramics Monthly. If you haven't seen it or read it, it's pretty good. On his website, he has this bio, and he talks about how this is a time. This atmosphere of division inhibits progress on so many of the important societal issues we face today. Moving beyond this divisive atmosphere needs to come from a multifaceted approach. It is my belief that art can be a powerful tool to contribute to this effort, and I agree. Are you proud of your culture or not? Sorry, Nathan Murray. I think I don't know how long he's been making art professionally, but he didn't have a lot on his website, so I think he's just up and coming, but they featured him on the cover of Ceramics Monthly, and I'm glad. This is really cool. We had a really good class discussion about what each of these people represented in society. You have a white kid that's dressed like a thug. You have a black girl who has blackface on. And what is that? A lot of kids didn't know what blackface was. You have this policeman. I was like, what do you think about this person? If it didn't say police, what would you think about this person? And some kids were like, he looks innocent. Other people were like, he looks mean. He looks judgmental. I was like, you're just saying that because it says policeman. No, for real, he looks judgmental. And then the girl with the sunglasses, she looks oblivious, but if you look up close in other photos of it, you can see a reflection of protesters holding up signs. So this is something not related to those three ideas for doing art projects. This is something else. So on a new page or on a new section of your notes, you might want to write this down, or email me and I'll email you back, or write down your email on my sketchbook. Where's my sketchbook? Keep passing it. All right, so this is my steps for creating a social justice art project. You need to start out with a concept, which is represented by an essential question, and you also need to start out with artistic method. Although many of my students did lots of different things, I still try and rein it in a little bit so it's not totally out there. I say, okay, we're going to learn how to slab build, or we're going to learn assemblage sculpture, or we're going to learn how to combine wood and clay using wooden dowels and wheel-thrown work, you know? So that's the artistic method. But then you need to have a concept to go along with it to drive the students into making meaningful artwork. I have a slideshow with examples. I give them a chance to formulate ideas. I don't demand that they start immediately after the slideshow because they need to think about it overnight, at least, maybe for a week. They need to formulate their ideas, sketch, model, share with each other, get feedback. With my most advanced students, we have one-on-one conferences or maybe a small group conference, and I kind of give them some feedback about their ideas before they start, especially if it's a big project they're going to spend a month or two on. Teach the method and techniques for exploring the concept, so that's where you demo. And then students create while teacher assists and gives feedback. That takes up the biggest chunk of time, number 5. Okay, that's when they're just making. And you come around, this is what I learned from my teacher in New Zealand, is that as they're working, you go around and you ask them, what are you working on? Okay, what are you trying to convey? What does this mean? What does this symbolize? What do you call this? What are people going to say when they see this? This looks like a dinosaur bone. Is that what you want it to look like? Things like that. And so they're creating and getting this feedback from me, and they're developing their idea. They're constructing exactly what they want to say. By the end, they should be able to critique and discuss their work. And you can critique on 2 different things: A, conveyance of concept, and B, craftsmanship using artistic method. Okay? Many of you, this is probably like, duh, this is easy, right? But when you're a teacher trying to write this down on paper, on a lesson plan, or even trying to do it, it helps to have it written out really logically like this. You have a critique and you say, okay, we're going to just talk about these pieces. We're just going to talk about the message they're conveying. We're not going to talk about if they did a good job putting it together. And you do that. And then maybe the next day or after that, you say, okay, now we can talk about craftsmanship and artistic method. But let's talk about them separately. Then students edit and perfect their work. They can make a new project based on the one they just did. They write about the creation and meaning of their artwork. A lot of education right now focuses on writing and reading. And so if you put a writing component into it, the principal's really happy and will give you more money to do your projects. Whatever. And then, but it is good, because when they write about it, then they define what their piece is about, and they restate to themselves and to everybody else what they're talking about, what's important to them. Present work in public space, art show, or competition is also important. That's what motivates them from beginning to end. I say, you're going to present this at X competition. We're going to put this in X art show, or this is going to be displayed in front of this audience. And that motivates them from start to finish to do a good job. Okay, so the second type of social art that we do is create awareness and understanding of other people. And probably when I first started these types of projects, I wouldn't have said this was social justice art. But now after experiencing it, I realize that as students learn about other people and other cultures, they gain an understanding and a respect for them. And they know that when they experience another culture that they don't understand, all they need to do is learn a little bit, and they will have respect for that culture too. It makes them more open-minded to multiculturalism. Those were students in Australia that I met when I traveled there 2014. I was lucky enough to meet Marie Clark, an Aboriginal Australian artist who is working with those children, helping them make art projects, but at the same time she's a practicing artist and traveling all over the world exhibiting her art. I asked her, I saw her at a conference like this called NCECA. Anybody heard of NCECA? It's pretty cool. It's international. A lot of art teachers go there. I met her there and I said, hey, can I come work with you in your studio? And she's like, sure, here's my email. And then she emailed me back right away and said, hey, we have some art shows going Thursday night. You want to come? I said, sure. She's like, I'll pick you up. This lady who I've never met picks me up with her friend. She's like, hey, you want some wine? We're going to the art show. I'm like, no, that's okay. I still have the rest of the week to go. And we went to the art show. I met the students she's working with who are all in foster care, Aboriginal Australian kids. They have Aboriginal heritage. And they're doing these things to learn more about their culture. They don't grow up learning about their culture naturally because there's no one to teach it to them. So lucky for programs like this with Marie Clark, she teaches them about it. And when you're researching another culture, say you want to do art about Navajo art with your students, don't just start doing it without a knowledge of it. And don't just search it on the internet and use Wikipedia or whoever else you find. Like, I admit it, I cheated once. I used the internet and I got a spreadsheet off there that said, these 3 marks represent rain. These hoof prints represent path in Native American language. And I used that my 3rd year of teaching. I feel really embarrassed now that I didn't figure out where those symbols came from and actually teach that to the students, do my research a lot better. So do your research. I researched with Marie, and I was able to help her make these, what are they called? Breastplates. She had this idea, but she didn't know how to use ceramic. And luckily, I showed up that week, and I taught her how to use clay, and she's like, why don't you just do it for me? Okay. So I stayed at her house till 2 in the morning making breastplates, and then she sent me these images about 6 months later. Hey, thanks for helping me. I had an art show with them. So that's my work, everybody. Even though she didn't put my name on it, that's me. I made that breastplate. Create awareness and understanding of other people. These are the steps you would do. I don't think I'll spend very much time on that slide. Is that okay? Just get a picture of it really quick. These are the steps I use. Choose a cultural art with social relevance. Research the culture with primary resources or sources. Practice the techniques and methods. You need to practice it so you understand how to do it. Teach the students not just the methods for creating the art, but you also teach them the culture and the symbolism. So don't skip any of those 3 things in number 4. They're all 3 very important when teaching another culture that is not your own. And then 5, students create original artwork based on their learning, but, this is important, symbolizing something meaningful and personal to themselves. So, if I'm going to do Maori artwork on my ancestor who came across the plains as a pioneer, I'm not going to use the same exact symbolism as Te Kuiti from the Maori culture. I'm going to use a new symbol that I create, that I might make in a style that looks Maori, but it's still my own symbol. Does that make sense? Okay, this is Te Kuiti Stewart. He's my mentor in New Zealand. Great guy. He was like my dad, my friend while I was there. He asked me, where are you going to stay when you're here for 3 weeks? And I said, he said, okay, you can stay at my house. And so I stayed with him and his family. I got to know all of them. They're like my second family. And we just love each other so much. This is what I created in 3 weeks with Te Kuiti's help. He helped me with this pare, which is a lintel piece that goes over the door. And that design I sketched in my sketchbook. And as my teacher, he helped me tweak it a little bit. He said, hey, how about we take out the boat and just make eels the boat? I was like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then he said, well, how don't we use these patterns in this place? But most of it, I drew. And then on the left is a mask that I designed, and he helped me, with the background, with the filigree in the background. But those are my symbols mixed with Maori symbols, telling my story about my family history and about my teachers. Let me just tell you about this one. This one's cool. This mask represents the principal of our school and how she feeds knowledge. She speaks knowledge, and we, the other teachers and students, feed off of her knowledge or her expertise. And so the eye at the bottom, that blue dot at the bottom, is the eye, and that's a beak going into the mouth of the mother. She's feeding us, the chicks. And then on the outside of the bottom eye, are other faces. You can't see it because you don't know Maori art, but there are other faces that represent the other students that we teachers teach. So as teachers, we teach each other, and then we teach the students, and then they keep feeding other people that knowledge. So I brought back Maori symbolism and Maori culture to my art students, and like Jill said in the introduction, this revolutionized my teaching and my classroom and how my students were learning. They really loved this project, taking symbolism from the Maori culture and making it their own. This girl made a pikorua, which is a twist. The girl on top made a twist, which is called a pikorua, which represents unity between two parties and how they may go in different directions, but they come together in the end. She took the idea of unity and combined it with freedom and made a fish. The fish is free to go in any direction it wants as it swims through the water. And then the girl on the bottom talked about the many generations of her Nigerian roots coming to America. Each twist is a new generation. Koruru are masks. Teko teko are small abstract figures representing the ancestors with symbols that represent their strengths and character traits. William says, my teko teko sculpture represents my family in many ways. The base of my sculpture represents my family's strong structure. My family tries its best to be a whole instead of many separate pieces. The big head shows that one of my family's values is intelligence. This is important to us because intelligence can take you a long way in life. How is this social justice? How is this art for social justice? Nobody? It's tying in with family. Is he gonna keep this secret and not share with anybody?
Well, it's also about the whole idea of empowering people and getting them to see from the inside out that for them, the sky can be their floor.
Thank you. I'm gonna have to repeat that so they can get it on the recording, but it's about empowering people and helping them make a voice for themselves in expressing who they are, where they come from. Did I get that right? It'll work. Sorry. Subscribe now to get the full version and to read all the words. This is Jonan. My teko teko is a superior queen standing on a piece of land. In my roots, one of my great-grandmothers is said to have been a queen to a great king, and through her power, she was able to manage protecting the kingdom's land even after her husband died. This has been a valuable thing that has made my family proud. How do you think the family felt when he brought that home? Now they have a solid reminder about who they are that they can pass on from generation to generation, and if they do it correctly, they will pass on the story that goes along with it. So now they have an oral history to pass on along with the visual history of that ancestor. And when they share it with other people understand, oh wow, Jonan comes from royalty. I thought he was just a black guy from Africa. Now I'm going to treat him like a king. They might not think that, but it's kind of unspoken. This is Arturo. He sees himself as a warrior. He's had to fight through a lot of difficult challenges in his life, single parent, poverty, but he sees himself as a warrior who can overcome those challenges and be a leader in his family. Then, after we connect them with Maori culture and speaking in Maori symbolic language, they're going to shift and use their symbols from their own personal culture. They have to do some research about where they come from and the symbols that come from that place and what those mean. This girl was Mayan. She looked up the Mayan symbolisms. This girl was Vietnamese, Egyptian, and Christian. Chinese, Native American. Acculturation. We do an abstract figure on acculturation. Acculturation is where two cultures come together, and it's about that experience, what's going to happen when those two or more cultures come together. When I go to New Zealand, when I go to Mexico, there's an acculturation that happens. And a lot of my students are coming from other places. Even from their home to school, there's acculturation that goes on. There's different things, a different culture at home than at school, and they have to deal with that. And there are studies that show that students who can live multiple cultures and not separate from each other, but combine them, are most effective in life. They live a more productive and successful life. And they're more successful in school. This student is Vietnamese, and he had just recently immigrated from Vietnam, but he felt like the American vortex was sucking him away from his Vietnamese roots and from his Vietnamese culture. He felt like he's being pulled away from it, and he's trying to hold on. And then this is the last section of the types of artwork that I would like to do with my students. Stories of the past, solutions for the future. And examples for these types, like the starting point you could use. Here's some examples of starting points you could use of stories for the past, solutions for the future. This is a tough one because if you just leave it wide open, find a story of the past and show how it's a problem today and then create a solution for the future. Whoa, high schoolers are going to be like, ugh. There's going to be a few that get it, but the rest are going to probably just sit there because it's too overwhelming. So you may want to, what I've done is I just pick one of these. Maybe I show a film like the documentary Meeting David Wilson. Anybody seen that? No? It's really cool. It talks about a man from New Jersey who is black and comes from, his ancestors were slaves in Virginia. He did his family history and found out that his family were descendant of slaves. And so he traces his roots back to Virginia and finds out that the descendants of the slave owners have a son named David Wilson, just like him. He's David Wilson, black David Wilson, and white David Wilson. And he's like, what would happen if I go visit David Wilson? And so he documents the trip that he goes back to Virginia. He works on a tobacco plantation, or tobacco farm now, and he realizes how hard a work that was. And his ancestors did that day in and day out with no pay and with cruelty. And then he goes and he knocks on the door of David Wilson. He's like, "Hi, I'm David Wilson. Your ancestors owned my ancestors." And it's a pretty cool movie. And I really love it because it shows how, although that horrible history happened, they come together at the end. They find some peace and some understanding together, and they become really good friends. They have a family reunion with all the white Wilsons and all the black Wilsons. They come together and have a big family reunion. It's amazing. And then Stolen Generation of Australia. I don't know if you know about that. The young Aboriginal Australians were taken from their families since colonization up until the 1970s or 80s. They were taken out of their homes and put into boarding schools against their will, and they lost their identity. And they're called the Stolen Generation of Australia. And they have different films about this, but one of them is called The Rabbit-Proof Fence. You might have seen it. And that kind of depicts it. You need to do some more research if you're going to address this one. Not just watch The Rabbit-Proof Fence, but you need to do a little more research. Appropriation and exploitation of Native American lands is happening right now. And so it's a really current issue that's happened in the past. It's happening now. What's the solution for the future? I really like that idea. I haven't done it yet with my students, but that's probably going to be the next one. Another broken treaty, thank you. African American, Hispanic American, and Asian American histories have not always been represented in public education. Maybe they're represented in your school now, maybe they're not. They're not represented in my school. Those histories aren't represented in my school. And so I'd like to have my students come up with a solution and express that through art. And then also racism in Texas. The original Texans that fought in the Alamo, there were Hispanics. there were Mexican Americans who fought in the Alamo for Texas independence. And what happened after Texas got its independence? The white rednecks kicked them out. They said, you better leave town or we're going to shoot you, you lying Mexican. And so great heroes like Juan Seguin and others had to leave Texas and go back to Mexico where they were persecuted there for fighting with the Texans. So that's a really sad history, but it's happening today. I mean, there's racism going on in Texas, and people are trying to talk about how Hispanics don't belong there, even though their family history goes back further than the whites in Texas. The Spanish were the ones that colonized Texas. Okay. There's more. And I want you guys to email me more ideas for stories of the past, solutions of the future. So, response. What new ideas have come to your mind as we've talked today? Go ahead and discuss it with your neighbors for the next 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 4 minutes. What new ideas have come to your mind as we've talked today? Get a partner.
So I don't know.
You got to have ideas, you guys.
No, I have ideas. These are the teachers, if I overheard them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I do a project with my sixth graders. We make advocacy zines, where they make like a small magazine about something that they're advocating for. So I could see a lot of ways to turn that into something more 3D after seeing your presentation.
Cool. I like that. Advocacy. Anything else, Nick?
No, there's just a lot going on in my head right now.
Yeah, I'm looking out at people. And some people are like nodding, and other people are just like blank face. I'm like, do you guys not agree with what I'm saying?
I think it's a lot of processing too. Yeah.
Lots of information, right?
Well, personally, in my school district, there's just a lot of really poorly done cultural argument, and it's just presented in a way that's just kind of inappropriate, I think. Where it's like, our Aboriginal art, okay, let's pick an animal, and you're going to make polka dots
Dots.
on the animal.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate all of this, and there's ways that we can use it, take that idea, bring it to our classroom, but do it in a way that's more authentic. Kind of explains the culture in a better way.
Thank you.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I like that you emphasize people actually do their research, not just pull the symbol from right out the sheet of symbols.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about that.
It's really teach that
Okay.
coming outside.
Yeah, that
Did you have a notebook going around for people
Oh, yeah.
to put their emails on?
Who has my sketchbook? There it is. Is it coming this way? Has it already been up here?
Yeah,
I'm going to go
they
get
have
it. I'm going to go get it. What's that? Oh, okay, okay. I thought you came to a deadline or dead end. Thank you. Thank you. It's there, ma'am. Yeah, I'll be around tomorrow night.
Yeah, I just applied for a grant to do work with, so I've done work with Big Brothers Big Sisters, but I want to work with girls' clubs and boys' clubs in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's where I'm from. I want to do a workshop called Something to Say. A lot of the pieces I'm doing right now are very kid-based, and there's a piece at our show at the Annie Meyer Gallery that's a wonderful piece. Yeah, you will love it.
Do you have anything to remind me?
I'm going to send you an email, and I'll send you a picture of the piece.
Right away.
It's no big deal, but
I'll be there.
I'm not like this.
Is it tonight or tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
Right here. This is our postcard. Right there.
Oh, okay.
But that's not in the book. That's usually.
What?
That's not the piece that's in the show. But
Oh.
I'll send you it. It'll be fine.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if you're serious about letting us have your slides, but
Oh, yeah.
I would love that. If
You got him.
that would be terrific.
Okay.
Thanks for saying, Christine.
Christine?
Yeah.
RJ.
Thank you
Nice
so
to meet
much
you.
for assisting.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. I'll be typing all day, all night.
Okay, yeah, you totally will be.
Pen?
It must
Somebody stole my favorite pen? Who stole my spotted pen? My fat pen. RJ Christensen. Right there.
Are you LDS?
That's not it. Yes, I am.
I am too. Oh my
Hi,
gosh.
sister.
I'm
Oh,
like, this is great.
connection.
I feel it. I was listening to you. Like, I feel like there's something good here. Really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about when I was saying I felt something, felt impressed. That's the spirit. It's like, I'm like full right now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I get it on there.
Okay. Can I just put my name on the book?
Thank you. We're not done yet, but if you gotta go, I understand. The book is back here if you want to put your name in it. We're not done yet. Is Danielle your name? Danielle up here talked about how she's seen some really lame art projects in her school. Let's do Aboriginal art. Pick an animal. Let's put dots around it. Is that Aboriginal art? No. Where's the research? Come on. Is this easy doing social justice artwork? What? Is social justice art easy? No. Is social justice easy? No, it's really hard. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. And I'm not making more money because of it, but I feel like it's my calling to have my students do this. And they come back and thank me for doing it. And they leave my class with a better understanding of the world and how to address it, how to connect with the world and not be hateful or fearful or despairing. Maybe they have that a little bit, but they know how to go forward with it. And make a message and talk about it with other people, because we practice that in the class. We have discussions in the class. Using art, using images, we have discussions about social justice. Does anybody have any concerns? Please use the mic. I'd like to know if there are any concerns of things I've said or any approaches, anything. Wow, I thought there'd be a line. Oh, there we go.
Hi. I teach college in Alabama, so maybe you have some similar issues. I'm wondering how when you begin to address these kinds of things, how do you handle it when you maybe have students that come from maybe a hyper-conservative background and they themselves identify with that, and then kind of negotiating the critique environment when you have students in the room who might be offended by that student's work?
Good point.
I haven't yet done this yet.
My first 2 years teaching, I was in Wyoming, where I'm from. Can you guys tell by the way I talk from Wyoming? By the way I look? Anyway, I'm from Wyoming, and I had that exact thing happen. I had a lot of immigrant Hispanics in my class and a lot of privileged white kids in my class, very conservative. And so we did a project about immigration. And the one student I know of that was undocumented immigrant, he asked to leave the room. He's like, I don't want to do this. I want to get out of here. He told me in Spanish. I was like, okay, that's too bad. Bye, sister. That's my friend. He wanted to leave the room, and the conservative kids were like, yeah, we need to kick all those immigrants out, blah, 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 and they're being really loud about it. I was like, geez, this is a problem. So since then, I've learned to cover both sides of an issue. When I'm presenting it to the students, I cover all the sides of an issue. We talk about it. So this last fall, we had a student that was a Trump supporter, and the whole entire class hated him because of it, but he wasn't scared to talk about it, and I made sure that he was in a protected place, that he wasn't going to be attacked for supporting Trump. And it was difficult, but it's manageable if you practice it, and if you're loving and kind to all your students, and you say, okay, Alberto, why do you support Trump? See, everybody, this is why he supports Trump. It's not because he hates Hispanics. It's because of this issue. And they understood Alberto, and he was able to understand them, and there was a mutual understanding and respect for one another, and the hate went down. Any other concerns? Does that answer your question? You have to show both sides of the issue.
Well,
my question's more of a follow-up to what you just talked about. When you had a situation like that where the student wanted to leave the room and the rest of the class was attacking, like, how did you resolve that, like, in that situation, or was
As
that
a new
kind of-
teacher, I didn't know what to do. I was like, crap.
Yeah.
My only immigrant's leaving. Now what do I do?
Yeah, I would have felt like I needed to make contact with that student afterwards.
Exactly.
In
That's what
class
happened.
and make sure that he was okay.
Yeah, he still didn't do the art project. He had to do something else. He did one of those homeboys like this, standing like this, with a backwards hat on. It was a cool sculpture.
This is more, I guess, my issue.
Yeah.
I guess this is more my issue, but I teach younger kids, and I'm working at organization, not school. It's a nonprofit organization, so parents have to bring their kids to my class, and most of the time, the racism happening and reverse racism happening, and I myself more exotic than my work and my artwork and my professional teaching work. So sometimes it's kind of hard to break that wall through the students and parents. And I don't know, it's my ongoing challenge.
I agree. Honestly, I am not a good person to ask about that because I'm white and you're Asian and you experience reverse racism and racism in a different way than I do. And your students talk about it and your parents talk about it in different ways to you than they would talk about it to me. So I don't have an answer for you, I'm sorry. But it's something we do have to deal with and we have to figure out. This is why we have this community and this discussion going on and why we're going to be emailing each other. And hopefully, I need somebody to set up a website or some kind of forum. I don't know how to do that stuff, but I want to have it. If anybody wants to volunteer, we can have an NCECA social justice art forum. A mass Google Docs? Okay. Would it be in like a folder where they could have documents in there and I could have documents in there? Okay, we'll talk.
To answer or respond to her question about how do you counter that reverse racism, I think as part of your dialogue with them, you need to share what it feels like to be the immigrant from your perspective. Because it goes back to that both sides of the story, because you have a story as much as they do. And they need to hear your story too, just as much as they need to express theirs.
Okay. Thank you. We have time for one more question. I'm sorry. We can talk further outside after the talk.
Where's your book?
I'm glad you asked. He asked, "Where's my book?" So, you mean the sketchbook? Yeah, I thought you were talking about the book I'm writing. Next question.
Hi. I love what you're doing up there. It's awesome.
Thank you.
How do you work with your students? So I feel like I saw the A, which was the idea, and the Z, which is the finished. How do you get them to come up with their iconography that they're using or other visuals? And with that, how do you get them to dig deeper and kind of come up with things that are more dynamic and ask a little bit more, or ask the viewer to investigate further rather than just a pass-by thing?
This is the hard work and headache side of these projects, and it's a lot of being patient, working with students individually, talking with them individually, having them sketch their ideas. I'm not satisfied with what you have yet. Keep going. What about this? What about that? I'll give you an idea. How about this idea? They take that and do something else with it. That's what's going on. I'm not saying, hey, here's the project, do it. See, I'm in my office. I'm working on my own project. More questions. Like all those essential questions I had, that's the prompt. That's all the time we have. If you want to talk to me outside, this is my student's piece that I started with called A Drop in the Ocean by Ives Mejia. And it represents how a drop in the ocean is just a drop in the ocean. It's not going to raise the level of the ocean. But the ripples it creates will go on forever and ever. And we as teachers are the drop in the ocean. Thank you.